Hi, I'm Bekah Jasperson with Jasperson Realty, and we are here today to talk to you about our Seamless Sales Solutions listing program.
All right, so I think what we're seeing in the marketplace now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're starting to see is we're seeing a lot of houses that are either on the very high end of the spectrum in terms of list price, or houses that need a lot of work, and yes, they're more affordable, but in a lot of cases, if you're a new family and you're looking to, move into a house to raise your family, you might not have the ability to kind of do those updates and make that home what it needs to be. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot in the middle in terms of house availability. How does seamless sales kind of address that issue?
Yeah, I think you're right. And like the houses that are really desirable, so to speak, on the higher end, or if they're priced right, those are the ones that are getting a lot of competition. So even if it is in a more affordable price range, buyers are having to waive inspection or go way over list price to get the house. And so seamless sales kind of helps bridge the gap, so to speak, because if it's a house that needs work that a buyer maybe isn't going to be able to do themselves, we help the seller do it prior to listing. So our last seamless sale, for example, the electrical work needed to be updated, and it wouldn't have been a home that would have passed like FHA or VA loan inspection, or they would have had issues with home insurance. And so we were able to have our electrician come in and get the electric up to code. And then same with like peeling paint and all that. So we did those updates prior to selling, and it ended up being a win-win because our sellers made more than they would have if we hadn't done those updates. They still netted more even with the increased cost. They got paid, the vendors got paid from the proceeds of the sale, so the sellers didn't have to pay anything out of pocket. And then the buyer ended up being a buyer with an FHA loan that had been not able to get a house in this market because it was exactly what you were saying. They were either priced out, or it was a house that wasn't going to pass FHA inspection. So it was a win-win for everybody involved.
So talk a little bit maybe about like, who would the buyer have been for that home if it didn't get updated?
It would have been an investor. A flipper most likely would have come in. And we did get even with the updates that we did, we had an investor come through and he wanted to write an offer for like almost $100,000 under list price, even with the updates that we'd already done. So we ended up getting over list price we got multiple offers and we ended up getting over list price, and it was an FHA loan. But it just goes to show you that the investors aren't looking to pay top dollar for these properties, which like I understand, but those aren't the people that you want to attract as sellers if you're looking to get top dollar for your home. So that's who it would have been. It would have been a flipper or an investor coming in, making those updates, and then doing exactly what the sellers did and selling it right away, or renting it out.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing that has really been missing in the market before a program like Seamless Sales was your choices if you needed to make updates to your property were either you paid somebody else to do it, you did it yourself, or you sold it as is. In either of those three scenarios, there's downsides, right?
Yep.
And there's costs associated with it. In a seamless sales type of a program, you get the benefit of making the updates and also get the benefit of being able to get the maximum amount of return for your property without having to come out of pocket for those yourselves or do it yourself or manage the process.
Yep, and you can get it done a lot faster because we're the ones managing it and we're making sure it gets done ASAP, essentially. And so with the seamless sales that we did paint, electrical update, item removal, cleaning, staging, new carpet, and it was all done within 4 to 6 weeks, and then the house was listed, where typically that's gonna take a lot longer. I had a seller previously where it took them 18 months to get their house ready to list when it was in a estate situation.
So talk about that one a little bit. That seems like an exorbitant amount of time to get something not even listed, but just get ready for listing.
Well, they were both out of area. They didn't live in the area anymore. It was their family home, so they were driving in on weekends when they were available, And obviously some of the things like I wouldn't be able to do because it's going through family documents or figuring out what they're gonna take versus what they're gonna get rid of. But just coming from out of town, it took them a really long time to get to a point where all of the items were removed and get the vendors scheduled because they didn't live in the area anymore. And so they kind of pulled us in later, so we couldn't really provide as many of those vendor recommendations. So yeah, I mean, and they really didn't end up doing many updates to the home because it had already taken so long to get it just cleaned out that they wanted to get it listed as soon as possible. And selling a family home, there's emotional aspects to it as well. And so that's the other part of it, is we are a trusted partner that will relieve some of that emotional weight as well.
Well, and you mentioned 18 months to get it listed. I mean, I know that the real estate industry is very cyclical in terms of, there's good times to list, bad times to list, but also you go back and forth between sellers and buyers markets, and sometimes the market's really hot, sometimes it's not as hot. I mean, what does that mean in terms of like somebody trying to get the most for their sale?
Yeah, and so I actually looked at what I would have recommended listing at if we had listed it when they first essentially started getting the property ready compared to when we did. And it was like almost $40,000 difference.
Wow.
And so yes, the market is still hot and we got over asking for it. So it ended up being probably closer to $20,000 difference, but who knows what it would have actually sold for at that other time, right? And so it did make a big difference because when they ended up listing, it was a time when interest rates were higher compared to they had been lower before. And so there's just a lot of things that go into it. So they did miss the hotter part of the market because they just weren't ready yet.
Well, and I think we always tend to advise clients not to try to time the market, right? Because it is tricky and you're never going to get it exactly,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
So you never really want to time the market, but regardless of when you put your property for sale, having it in the best condition possible is always going to get you the highest possible list price.
Right. And also just tie your own time and well-being, right? Like how much time they spent driving back and forth. I mean, they both lived hours away. So 18 months of driving back and forth, that's a lot of time and energy that they spent trying to get their house ready when is literally a house around the corner from our office. So I could have been managing that for them. And they were a big reason of why we really wanted to create this seamless sales program, because after they told me about it, I was like, there has to be a way that I can ease some of that burden for people and make it easier for them.
Right. Well, and I know in a lot of cases, this is not strictly a financial decision, right? It's an emotional decision. But if you look at it strictly from a financial standpoint, if you take that $40,000 additional and then you take whatever they netted on the sale of the property, and then you look at having that 18 months earlier, right? There's a huge financial benefit to getting that money from your property earlier, because now you don't have inflation, now you have the ability to do something else with it from an investment standpoint. So there is a huge financial component and a real rationale for why you want to get your property listed sooner rather than later.
Yes, definitely. And especially if that's your end goal, right? Like if you're not, I know in a lot of estate situations, they're like, oh, we're not in a hurry, we want to figure it out. And that's different, right? Like if, don't sell just for the sake of selling, but if it is your end goal and yes, we can get you there faster and easier, then it makes all the sense in the world.
Thanks for watching, and if you or anybody you know is looking for a solution or has questions about these types of estate sales or just real estate selling in general, please check out our website, jaspersonrealty.com. Even if we don't work with you, we would love to connect. We want to be a resource for everybody in the community, because we feel like the more people understand and have the ability to capitalize on what is likely their biggest asset, the better off everybody's going to be. So feel free to head to our website, check it out, and give us a call.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Jasperson Realty.